Pardon me if I run this issue into the ground, but I can't overstate enough the importance of a good comic book cover. To me, the cover should sell the contents and at the very least imply what the consumer may expect. Here we have two different covers for Action Comics 1004. On the left is the principal cover, the right is the variant. Now the left tells me absolutely nothing about the contents of the issue, while the right does. The point of a cover is to induce the customer to buy the comic, and the left, while the art is nice, and at least it's not Superman taking a selfie, is utterly bland. I do not know why they did not go with the right cover, as I don't think any Superman fans object to Clark and Lois being romantic. Now take Dreadstar issue 3's cover. Here we've got some dynamic stuff going on here. Vanth looks desperate, with a wanted poster on the wall and him looking like he's been in a fight. It implies the issue is going to be loaded with action. Well, it is, but at the same time the cover doesn't give away all the goodies. Let me show you what I mean. The story opens up in what is known as Instrumentality Central, or the War Room, where the Church of the Instrumentality directs the goings-on of 1,000 worlds. Here we have the Lord High Papal, who thinks not of these worlds or the million or so of his citizens that die annually in the 200-year war with the monarchy. No, his mind is on rebels. The Lord High Papal clues us in with some exposition as he explains that Vanth Dreadstar and company have already looted one of the church's treasuries and has figured out the rebels' next step will be to rip off one of the teleportation drives that has given the church their lethal edge on the monarchy. Admiral Mutton Chops says they've already got an all-points bulletin out on the gang, and isn't that enough? Ooh, bad answer, Admiral Quinn is. Yeah, I'm sticking with Mutton Chops. The right answer is, my lord, what else may we do to better capture these infidels? Trust me, it's always best to assume your boss thinks you could be doing more. That way you're not surprised when they tell you to do something. The Lord High Papal, or LHP, tells his overly bewhiskered subordinate that he wants all the ships with the drive to be on high alert and in constant contact with home. Meanwhile, on planet Chichiro, life goes on. Let's pause and take a look at this panel here. Look at the time and effort Jim Starlin put into this crowd. We've got a legless war vet, bearded twins, robots, a snake guy, and... whoa! Is that a woman topless? Maybe it's not a woman, but a man with curves. Point is, Jim delivers a great deal of detail to what to many artists would be a throwaway panel. There's a reason why this comic was bi-monthly. We get what might be a father and son who dress alike, and I gotta say I respect the man's choice in accessorizing with that man purse. Over the page we've got Vanth and Sis checking out a wanted poster with their faces. I'm assuming 1,000 credits is a lot of money. Or maybe not, because we've got a guy just looking at the pair and not running away to call the cops. By the way, a violet jacket with striped blue and white pants? Bold choice, my friend. Turns out Van's plan is to distract the LHP and the authorities by just walking around and waiting to be spotted so that while authorities are hot to get them, the less powerful members of the team won't be noticed. And it seems the plan is working, as a patrolman does his best to call it in and at the same time not wet his tights in terror. Meanwhile, 500 light years away, Willow, Eddie, and Skeevo hear the report that Vanth's been spotted, and they get ready to pull off their end of the mission. I gotta say, the Instrumentality security really sucks if the good guys can listen in on the comm chatter so easily. I guess we could chalk it up to Ziz's extensive knowledge of the church's inner workings, combined with Skeevo's smuggler background. It's a minor nit, but I think Starlin could have elaborated a bit more on how these outlaws are able to so easily listen in on top-secret traffic. Anyway, moving on. The LHP is wondering what Dreadstar and Darklock, or D&D, are doing on Chichano. You don't become head of a corrupt and nearly omnipotent church without being super suspicious of, well, everybody and everything. Vanth confirms things are getting hot and the place is loaded with cops, so it's time to hood up. It's a nice touch, the idea that Vanth dons the hood before impending action, like it puts him in a different mindset. It's little touches like this that help define a character. D&D kicks all kinds of ass as the Papal's forces come on strong, and I love how Jim crafts an action scene. We see Vanth protect Darklock's back, while Siz's shield cracks under the impact of energy blasts. Then while Vanth is punching some guy and likely driving his nose up into his sinuses, Siz employs a disintegrate spell. Man, Siz is pretty damn high level if he's casually tossing around 6th level spells on 1st level minions. But things turn ugly when the second wave strafes the crowd. Vanth realizes he's made a serious error in judgment when he says he didn't expect the bad guys to indiscriminately fire on innocents. Which makes me wonder if Vanth forgot that he's fighting an oppressive and merciless theocracy that doesn't give a damn about the little people. I utterly love how we get this little story here about this poor bastard in green who obviously picked the wrong day to go out and get his head waxed. Again, Jim puts so much detail into these panels that it puts some modern artist to shame. 500 light years away, and an instrumentality destroyer's crew are listening in on the action when one of the crew people picks up a jump ship coming from the asteroid belt with a lone humanoid on board. The ensign at the communication station points out that, hey, maybe they should call it in since that's part of their orders, but the captain says why bother since D&D are cornered and they couldn't get through anyway. Hey Captain, your log is going to show you didn't do your job. If the LHP doesn't use your head as a bowling ball, your next assignment will be the USS Desk Job. The jump ship is captured and Willow is brought before the captain. Dude, haven't you heard about manspreading? While Willow is being interrogated by the captain, we discover why there was only one person on the jump ship. Turns out Eddie and Skeevo are up to no good, and they're using a fake asteroid and a really powerful magnet to get cozy with the ship. The pair cut their way in as Willow shuts down, well, everything but life support. I love how subtly badass she comes across here. Willow might not be able to throw disintegration spells or has a magic sword, but damn she's powerful. One of the crew actually has a brain and realizes Willow is behind it, and she swings into action, but not before someone hits the alarm. Wait, if Willow shut everything down but life support, shouldn't that have included the alarm? Why would Willow not disable the alarm? Is it because it's hardwired or something? Wouldn't Willow have knocked out the guy first? How does Willow go from being super competent to uber inept in one page? Fortunately, Eddie and Skeevo are... Well, okay, it's Eddie on the job, as he breaks out some badass cat foo, pistol whipping crew members like it's pistol whipping Christmas or something. The guys touch base with Willow, who confirms she took out her guys and is now ready to introduce what the computer confirms is odorless, colorless gas that, according to Skeevo, KOs the crew for 6 hours. Willow sends an emergency transmission that Project Sticky Fingers is secured. Vanth hears the transmission and tells Sis, who says it's about goddamn time. And goddammit, I love this panel, with Darklock blowing shit up in the foreground and Vanth cruising around in his ride and doing the same in the background. It's cinematic is what it is. Back in the war room, the LHP realizes he's been outplayed, paying attention to bishops and knights while he's been pwned by the pawns. The Lord High Papal decides that he's through playing around, and he's made a decision.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Vanth picks up the order on the radio, and I love the dynamic. On the one hand, we've got the bad guys realizing they've been outmaneuvered, and on the other, we have the good guy realizing that twice in one day, he's underestimated the sheer inhuman ruthlessness of his opponent. Hero and villain alike are fallible. Vanth desperately tries to think of a plan to save the city, but Sis, ever the merciless pragmatist, knows that there is absolutely nothing they can do except save themselves. Against Vanth's protestations, the sorcerer priest carries them down to the sewers, while the vessel above targets the city. Down in the depths of the sewer, Sis begins to weave a spell, while high above, the torpedoes have been launched. Sis explains that while his sphere will protect them from the impact, Vanth's sword will have to soak up the radiation. The missiles strike the capital, and the title of the comic, Holocaust, becomes a grim reality. Back in the war room, it's business as usual. The Lord High Papal wants to know which idiot lost the ship's teleportation drive, and he wants a press release issued laying the blame of the destroyed city on Dreadstar and Company, and that those responsible have been caught and executed. For the Lord High Papal, it's a good day. Only it's not, because Vanth and Syzygy have survived. Sis is wiped out from the strain of creating the protective spell, and it's up to Vanth to carry his friend up the long, long distance to the surface, where he discovers the city has been utterly destroyed. He finds a flattened plane and must transverse it to the outskirts, where Jim Starlin proceeds to reveal both in text and horrific visual the horror of the aftermath of a nuclear strike. The most chilling line is when Vanth sees the bodies. The children are the worst to look at. Our hero is utterly helpless, impotent as he makes his way back to his ship, coming across survivors, Dead people walking who are in indescribable pain and misery. Vanth departs, knowing all he can do is continue the fight. Back on board the ship, Eddie excitedly reports the gang was successful, but not even this good news can lift Vanth's spirits. As he hands an exhausted Syzygy over to the guys, he gets a report from Willow that they have enough parts on board to create 20 T-Drive units. Vanth, despite his crippling grief, tells Willow he's proud of them. As he walks away, Willow asks what is really bad on Chichiro. All Vanth can do is reply, yeah, his mind incapable of describing the hell he's witnessed. In his quarters, Vanth ruminates on the cost of his private war against the instrumentality and monarchy, and while he realizes his goal is to save billions, he can't forget the 15 million who have just died, and all he can do to honor their sacrifice is to live and push ahead. Our story ends with Vanth's cry of impotent outrage against a cold and unfeeling universe. If Dreadstar 2 was a look at how the instrumentality can so casually destroy individual lives, Dreadstar 3 reveals just how utterly merciless and destructive it can be in the pursuit of the merest hint of rebellion. While we saw something very similar in the Star Wars movie when the Death Star blew up Alderaan, it was all rather sanitized, without us seeing any of the people prior to the planet's destruction, and Leia's lack of grief. Here we have Vanth, a man, shedding tears of sorrow and rage for the part he played in the atrocity. It's amazing how Jim Starlin can take us from an action/heist tale to one of utter horror. It's an effective end to another disturbing issue. Despite the dark tone of the book and the third act, I find Dreadstar 3 a compelling read with top-notch art, and really I feel it's Jim Starlin on top of its game both in terms as a writer and an artist. As always, I hope you enjoyed the recap, and if so, please like, share, and subscribe. Have a good one.